A marriage built on lies. I always believed my wife, Laura, and I had a strong marriage. We had been together for 8 years, married for 5, and while we had our ups and downs, I never doubted her loyalty. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where you could leave your doors unlocked and trust your neighbors. I worked in IT, often putting in long hours, while Laura had a more flexible job as an event planner. She worked odd hours sometimes, but I never questioned it. I trusted her completely. Lately, though, something had felt off. Laura had become distant. At first, I chalked it up to work stress. She had been handling a big client, planning a high-profile event, and it made sense that she was preoccupied. But it was more than that. She started guarding her phone, something she had never done before. When I entered a room, she would quickly close whatever app she was using. She smiled less, laughed less. Our conversations became shorter, more superficial. One evening, I tried to talk to her about it. "Laura, is something wrong?" I asked as we sat on the couch, watching a show neither of us was paying attention to. She barely looked up. "What do you mean? You've been distant. Distracted. It feels like we're not really talking anymore." She sighed and ran a hand through her hair. "I'm just exhausted, Josh. Work has been crazy, and I don't have energy for much else." I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. So I let it go, but the doubt had been planted. The moment, everything changed. It was a Friday night, and Laura was out for a work dinner. She had dressed up more than usual, makeup flawless, heels higher than she typically wore for professional events. She smelled amazing, her perfume lingering in the air long after she left. I sat on the couch, trying to ignore the nagging feeling in my gut. I turned on the TV, but my mind wasn't on the screen. Then her iPad buzzed. I glanced over. It was sitting on the coffee table, face up, a message preview glowing on the screen. "I can't wait to see you tonight. I need you." My stomach dropped. The sender's name? Eric. I felt frozen, my breath caught in my throat. Eric? Who the hell was Eric? My hands shook as I picked up the iPad. Laura must have forgotten it was linked to her phone. My heart pounded as I swiped up and opened the messages. What I saw made my blood run cold. "Eric, last night was incredible. I can still taste you." Laura. "God, I wish I could be with you all night." Eric. "Soon. He'll never know." I gripped the device so hard my knuckles turned white. My vision blurred as rage and betrayal coursed through me. This wasn't just some flirtation. This was full-blown, ongoing cheating. Laura, the woman I had given my heart, my trust, my everything, was sleeping with another man. And she thought I would never find out. The crushing reality. I scrolled up, reading message after message. The affair had been going on for months. There were plans to meet at hotels, secret rendezvous during her work events, and even mentions of how she lied to me, laughing about how easy it was. He doesn't suspect a thing. I feel bad sometimes, but then I think about how happy you make me. I love the thrill of sneaking around. I felt physically sick. My stomach churned, while rising in my throat. Every single text was a stab to the chest, each one worse than the last. I gritted my teeth, trying to breathe, trying to think. This wasn't just some meaningless fling. She had emotionally checked out of our marriage. She had lied to my face, shared intimate moments with another man, and laughed about it. How long had I been a fool? I clenched my fists, my mind spinning. There were so many ways I could handle this. Confront her immediately? Wait and gather more proof? Pretend nothing had happened and plan my revenge? No, I wasn't going to act out of raw emotion. I needed to be smart. Laura thought she had control of the situation. She thought she was getting away with it. She was wrong. A plan begins to form. I sat in silence for what felt like hours, staring at the screen. My heart was pounding, my hands clenched into fists. The woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. But I wasn't going to explode in rage. No, I was going to be methodical. If she wanted to sneak around and play games, I'd show her that I could play them even better. I took screenshots of every incriminating text, forwarding them to my private email. Then, I searched for Eric's contact information. There was no last name, but I scrolled through their past messages until I found something useful. "Eric, you looked stunning last night. That red dress should be illegal." Laura. "Haha. Maybe I'll wear it again when you take me to that fancy bar next week." Eric. "Done. Same place as last time. A bar. A specific meeting place." That was all I needed. I had a location. Now I just needed to confirm who this bastard was. Uncovering the truth. The next morning, Laura acted completely normal, as if nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek, made her usual cup of coffee, and scrolled through her phone at the kitchen table. She didn't even notice that her iPad was gone. "How was the dinner?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She barely looked up. "Oh, exhausting. The client was a nightmare." "Liar. Did you at least have fun?" She gave a half-hearted shrug. "Not really. Just work." I felt a surge of disgust. How easily she lied. How effortlessly she deceived me. But I forced a smile and nodded. "Well, at least it's over." She smiled back. "Yeah, I'm just glad to have a day off." She had no idea that I knew everything. Finding Eric. That afternoon, while Laura was out running errands, I did some investigating. I went through our shared laptop, checking her social media. She had been careful. There were no obvious signs of Eric. But then I checked her work contacts. And there he was. Eric Matthews, one of her high-profile clients. I found his LinkedIn, his company website. He was a marketing executive, married, and had 2 kids. A married man. This wasn't just a betrayal against me. It was a betrayal against his own family. I clenched my jaw. Now I had everything I needed. Setting the trap. I waited for the perfect moment. A few days later, Laura told me she was going out for a girls' night. I pretended to believe her, kissed her goodbye, and waited for her to leave. Then, I grabbed my keys and followed her. She didn't go to any friend's house. She went straight to the bar from the texts. I parked nearby, watching as she walked inside, looking around as if checking to see if anyone had followed her. I gave it a few minutes before stepping out of my car. I took a deep breath, walked inside, and spotted them instantly. Laura sat at a dimly lit table, giggling, twirling her hair as Eric leaned in close, whispering something in her ear. Rage boiled in my veins, but I forced myself to stay calm. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Laura had no idea she was about to lose everything. Confrontation in the bar. My hands were steady as I recorded the scene before me. Laura, my wife, laughing with her lover like she didn't have a care in the world. Like I didn't exist. Like our marriage was nothing more than an inconvenience to her. I watched as Eric placed his hand on her thigh. She didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned in closer, whispering something in his ear. That was it. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and walked over. Their laughter died the moment Laura saw me. Her face paled, her eyes widening in shock. Eric, confused, glanced between us, clearly not realizing who I was. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, my voice calm and deliberate. "Funny running into you here." Laura's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Josh, what are you doing here?" I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording. Catching up on my wife's social life. Since she's been so busy with work. Eric straightened in his seat, looking uneasy. "Look, man, I don't know what." I cut him off. "Save it, Eric. I know exactly who you are. And I know exactly what you two have been doing." Laura's face crumpled. "Josh, please, let's go somewhere private and talk." I chuckled darkly. "Oh, now you want to talk? That's interesting, because you sure didn't care about our marriage when you were sneaking around behind my back." Eric pushed back his chair, standing. "Listen, I don't want any trouble." "Too late for that," I said, locking eyes with him. "How's your wife, by the way? And your kids?" His face turned white. "What?" "Oh yeah," I continued. "I know about them. I wonder how your wife would feel if she knew what you were up to." Laura gasped. "Josh, don't." I turned to her, my expression cold. Don't. Don't what, Laura? Don't hold you accountable for the months of lies? The sneaking around? The texts? The hotels?" I leaned in slightly. "I know everything. I have everything." Tears welled in her eyes. "It wasn't. I never meant to hurt you." I scoffed. "But you did. And now, you're about to learn what it feels like." Public humiliation. The bar had grown quiet. People were watching. Whispers spread through the crowd as they realized what was happening. I pulled my phone back out, scrolling through my email. With a few taps, I sent the screenshots to Eric's wife. "There," I said, looking up at him. "She should be getting those any second now." Eric's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, his face contorting in panic as he read the messages. "You son of a," he started, but I cut him off with a smirk. "Save it. You made your choices. Now you get to deal with the fallout." Laura reached for my hand, desperation in her eyes. "Josh, please. Don't do this. We can fix this." I pulled away from her touch. "There's nothing left to fix, Laura. You already broke everything." Her bottom lip trembled. "I love you." I let out a bitter laugh. No, you don't. You love the thrill, the lies, the deception. You love sneaking around. But you don't love me. She opened her mouth to argue, but I was done. I turned and walked out of the bar, leaving her and Eric to deal with the consequences of their betrayal. The fallout begins. By the time I got home, Laura had called me 6 times, texted me even more. I ignored them all. Instead, I sent all the proof I had to my lawyer. I wanted a divorce, and I wanted it fast. I wasn't going to give her the chance to manipulate her way out of this. Her life was about to fall apart, and I had no sympathy left. The beginning of her downfall. The next morning, Laura came home looking like a wreck. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes puffy from crying, and her hair a tangled mess. She hesitated at the doorway, as if unsure whether she was still welcome. I didn't say a word. I just stood in the living room, arms crossed, waiting for her to speak. "Josh," she started, her voice trembling. "Please, can we talk?" I tilted my head. "Talk? Oh, now you want to talk. Interesting, considering all the times I asked you about your late nights and you brushed me off." She swallowed hard, guilt written all over her face. "I messed up. I know I did. But please, let's just sit down and—" "No," I said, cutting her off. "There's nothing to discuss. I already sent everything to my lawyer. We're done." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Josh, I made a mistake." I laughed bitterly. "A mistake? A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is missing an appointment. What you did wasn't a mistake, Laura. It was a choice you made over and over again." She stepped closer, but I moved back. "Please, I don't want to lose you." "You already did. The divorce papers." I handed her the divorce papers. "Sign them." She stared at them as if they were a death sentence. "Just like that." I nodded. "Just like that." Her hands shook as she flipped through the pages. "You're not even going to try to work things out." I arched a brow. "Would you have forgiven me if the roles were reversed?" Silence. "That's what I thought." She slumped onto the couch, her body shaking as she sobbed into her hands. "I don't want this." I remained unmoved. "You wanted Eric. Now you can have him." Her world collapses. A few days later, Laura's world truly began to fall apart. First, Eric's wife had found out everything. She took the evidence I provided and went straight to a lawyer. Eric was now facing an ugly divorce, and his cushy life was crumbling. But the worst part for Laura? Eric wasn't there for her. I had suspected it from the start. He was never going to leave his wife for her. And as soon as his marriage imploded, he did what all cowards do. He ran. Laura tried calling him, texting him, begging him to talk to her. He blocked her. She had blown up our marriage for a man who had never intended to stay. The social fallout. Word spread fast. Friends, family, even her coworkers found out about the affair. I didn't even have to say anything. People talked, and Laura's reputation was ruined. Her boss, who had always admired her professionalism, called her into a meeting. "We can't have this kind of scandal attached to our firm," he had said, shaking his head. "Clients are pulling back, and your name is being dragged through the mud. We have to let you go." She had built her career for years, only to watch it go up in flames in an instant. Her so-called friends? They distanced themselves. No one wanted to be associated with her mess. She was alone. Her desperate plea. One evening, as I was packing up the last of my things to move into my new apartment, Laura showed up at the door. She looked broken, hollow, like she hadn't slept in days. "Josh," she whispered, "I have nothing left." I stared at her, my expression unreadable. "And whose fault is that?" She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Please, I'll do anything. Just give me one more chance." I let out a slow breath. "You're only sorry because you got caught. If Eric had left his wife for you, would you still be standing here begging for another chance?" Her silence was my answer. I nodded. That's what I thought. Then, without another word, I closed the door on her for the last time, moving on without her. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt nothing but relief. No sadness, no regret, just a weight lifting off my shoulders. I had spent months trapped in a nightmare, doubting myself, questioning everything. But now I was free. I moved into my new apartment, a smaller but cozy place with no painful memories attached. It was a fresh start, a clean slate. Laura, on the other hand, was spiraling. She had tried to fight for alimony, but with all the proof of her affair, the judge had denied her any financial support. The apartment? Gone. Her savings? Dwindling. Her career? Over. And Eric? Nowhere to be found. The last time I saw her. A few weeks after the divorce, I ran into Laura at a grocery store. She looked different. She had lost weight. Her clothes hung loosely on her frame, and her once perfectly styled hair was now a mess. She hesitated when she saw me, then forced a weak smile. "Hey." I nodded. "Hey." For a moment, we just stood there. Then she sighed. "I guess I deserve this." I raised an eyebrow. "Deserve what?" She motioned around vaguely. "Everything. Losing my job, my friends, my reputation, you." I didn't respond. She chewed her lip, as if debating whether to say more. "Do you ever think, maybe if I had made different choices, we could have?" "No," I cut in firmly. "Because you didn't make different choices. You chose lies. You chose betrayal. And now, you're living with the consequences." Her eyes welled with tears, but I didn't feel sympathy. "You never really loved me, did you?" she asked quietly. I thought about it for a moment before answering. "I think you love the idea of me. The security, the stability. But love? No, because real love doesn't betray." She nodded slowly, her face full of regret. "I wish I could go back." I gave her a small, sad smile. "But you can't." And with that, I walked away. A new beginning. Months passed. The pain faded. I focused on rebuilding my life. My job was steady. I was reconnecting with old friends, and for the first time in years, I felt happy. One evening, as I sat at a cafe, sipping coffee and reading a book, a woman approached me. "Excuse me," she said, smiling. "Is this seat taken?" I glanced up, meeting her warm brown eyes. I smiled back. "Not at all." As we started talking, I realized something. My past with Laura was just that, the past. And my future? It was just beginning.